Assalamualaikum friends, welcome to my YouTube channel Medical Physiology. Hope so you are all doing good by the grace of Almighty Allah. Friends, this is my first video on my YouTube channel. This video is about the distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct of nephron. This is the topic of nephron. The distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct are the final two segments of the kidney nephron. They have an important role in the absorption of many ions and in water reabsorption. The distal convoluted tubule can be subdivided into the early and the late sections, each with their own functions. This article will consider the function of both sections of distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct. First of all, we are discussing early distal convoluted tubule. The role of the early DCT is the absorption of ion including sodium chloride and calcium. It is impermeable to water. The macula densa are situated in the first segment of the DCT. These are the sensing epithelium involved in tubuloglomerular feedback. This tubuloglomerular feedback allows for control of glomerular filtration, GFR, and blood flow within the same nephron. Movement of these ions is dependent on sodium and potassium ATPase transporter on the basolateral membrane of the cells. This excretes sodium ions into the extracellular fluid and brings potassium ions into the cell. This channel reduces intracellular sodium levels, creating a gradient which favors movement of sodium into the cell via other channels on the apical membrane. This process is primary active transport, as ATP is directly needed to set up the gradient. You can see that the sodium concentration gradient generated allows sodium to enter the cell from the lumen, the distal convoluted tubule, which occurs through the NCC symporter, sodium chloride co-transporter, that is NCC. Alongside chloride ions, the chloride ions then exit the cell. A chloride ion unipolar porter on the basolateral membrane into the extracellular fluid, preventing accumulation within the cell. Thiazide diuretics used to treat hypertension and heart failure, inhibiting the NCC. Calcium absorption also utilizes the sodium gradient established from Na positive and K positive ATPase channel on the basolateral membrane. There is also an NCX channel. This is responsible for transporting calcium ions out into the extracellular fluid and sodium ions into the cell. The reduction in intracellular calcium creates a gradient which draws calcium ions from the lumen of the tubule into the cell through a calcium ion uniporter. Since ATP is not directly required, this is secondary active transport. Parathyroid hormone PTH also acts here. Binding of PTH to its receptor causes more Ca2 positive channels to be inserted and increases Ca2 absorption. Next, you can see in this diagram that the thiazide diuretics enter into the cell through Na positive and chloride negative, and Na positive out and K positive into the cell with the help of ATP, and chloride ion should be exhausted from this cell. Next, lateral late distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct. There are two main types in this region: primary cells and intercalated cells. First of all, principal cells. Principal cells make up the majority of the tubular cells. They are mainly involved in the uptake of sodium ions and extrusion of potassium ions. This exchange is again driven by a Na positive and K positive ATPs on the basolateral membrane. This sets up a gradient for sodium to enter the cell through ENAC channels, epithelial Na positive channel. Sodium ions are positively charged, so as they are extruded, an electrical gradient is formed. Additionally, potassium ions accumulate within the cell due to the Na positive and K positive ATPase. Both of these factors promote secretion of potassium ions into the lumen of the tubule through a potassium uniporter. You can see clearly in this diagram Na positive channel blockers amiloride and trimetrin, and aldosterone antagonists that are inside the cell. You can see that spironolactone and eplerenone. Intercalated cells. What are intercalated cells? Intercalated cells exist in acid base control by controlling the level of hydrogen and bicarbonate ions. Type A intercalated cells utilize hydrogen ATPs and H positive and K positive ATPase transporters to secrete hydrogen into the lumen whilst reabsorbing hydrogen by reabsorbing bicarbonate ions. Bicarbonate is formed by intercellularly by carbonic anhydrase acting on the carbon dioxide and water. The difference between the PCT and type A intercalated cells is that these cells can actively secrete hydrogen into the lumen against a concentration gradient, allowing for H positive secretion in response to acidosis. Once in the lumen of the tubule, the hydrogen ions react with either phosphate or ammonia. This prevents the ions from re-entering the cell as both new compounds are charged. Hence, they are unable to travel back across the membrane and so are excreted. To prevent an accumulation of chloride ions and potassium ions within the cell, K positive and Cl negative supporter on the basolateral membrane allows leakage of these ions back into the extracellular fluid. Conversely, type B intercalated cells have H positive and HCO channels on opposite sides of the cell. The net effect in type B cells is secretion of HCO3 bicarbonate ion and reabsorption of H positive, important in the body's response to alkalosis. This is all about this topic. Now inshallah we will meet in the next video. In the end, I request to my lovely friends to subscribe my channel, like my video. Inshallah we will meet soon in the next video. Thank you so much.